I've been going to the Denver airport for 12 years on a regular monthly basis. It's when I went to Denver back 12 years ago, I started realizing this is one weird airport. The artwork is strange. The statues are strange.
This is clearly some kind of Masonic thing.
It's just a lot of weird things.
When Barack Obama ran for office in 2008, you can probably Google image this. He's standing like this in front of the extinction poster, right? You're like, whoa, why did he choose that one?
But the biggest conspiracy about the Denver airport is it built with underground facilities for the new government or the new world order? I don't know, because I've never been underground the airport, but it sure is the biggest airport I've ever seen. Some people say it's bigger than Manhattan in New York. It's huge.
In the old days, I would have been killed for revealing stuff about this.
While the photo of former US President Barack Obama that you just saw turned out to be fake, the conspiratorial lore surrounding Denver International Airport, or D.I.A., is most certainly not. This massive airport set in Denver, Colorado, has garnered a myriad of conspiracy theories since it first opened back in 1995. Ranging from demonic gargoyles to swastika-shaped runways, there are simply too many theories to go over in one documentary. Instead of trying to examine them all, we'll take an in-depth and objective look at the most popular conspiracy theories surrounding this much-traveled airport.
What are some of the more common, I guess more widely accepted conspiracy theories that explain D.I.A., and what are some of the more atypical ones that you've heard?
The most common is that it is built for the new government if something happens in Washington, D.C.
I started realizing that this was part of COG, or continuity of government.
That government needs to exist again, and I believe that, I understand that, and they need a place to work safely. And that theory is that's underground under the Denver airport, that underneath it is something as cavernous as a small city. I mentioned Manhattan, which really isn't that small.
Denver airport, which is twice the size of Manhattan, is almost in the same exact, in the center of the country. It's got these nice big mountains that you can hollow out, right, for safety. And everybody, all the bigwigs, the elites, all have pretty much equal air traffic access. Takes about 2.5 hours to get to Denver from anywhere in the United States, contiguous, I mean. So if an emergency is called, everybody's got 2.5 hours to fly to Denver. They all land in Denver. They go into an underground chute. It takes them into a base in the mountains, a hollowed out mountain, just like Cheyenne Mountain, Colorado Springs.
They have that kind of facility and capability in case something happens in the nation's capital.
The elites, knowing this, created a network of underground bases and places that they could go, sometimes off planet. And it's all within their domain. It's not within ours. We'll never go there. We'll never be invited. We don't know where the doors are. We don't know anything.
I can accept that, and I don't fault that. I think any country worth their salt needs an escape route in case of some emergency or an asteroid hits them or something like that.
In some ways, it's like, yeah, then they should be doing this, right? I mean, they should be taking care of the leaders so that they can lead when a catastrophe comes. What good are leaders if they're all dead? It makes total sense. In some ways, it makes me feel better. At least they're not, just sitting around having sex and taking drugs. They're actually doing something.
You have to realize, Ryan, that back then, most civic leaders, business leaders, politicians thought that the best idea was to go to the Rocky Mountain Arsenal. So when we announced out of nowhere that we had reached this agreement to move the airport east, people were flabbergasted. They were completely blindsided. They were upset. In fact, it was called Federico's folly. And so I had to spend a lot of time educating people, convincing people that in the long term, i.e. the 21st century, we were back in the 20th century back then, this was the best long-term solution. And we said, look, if we build this airport out on 50 square miles of land, which is what we finally agreed to, we'll be able to expand that airport indefinitely. we will never have the problems of having a constrained airport like New York has, or San Diego has, or other communities has. Future mayors can build up to 12 runways.
Wow.
And up to 6 or 7 concourses. There is no airport in the world that has that capacity. Back then, there were no conspiratorial theories. I think they started to arise when the baggage facility went amok, which is underneath the airport, and people started thinking, well, what was all that underground area for? And I think that may have started the conspiratorial thinking.
So when you first found out, what was your initial reaction to all of these conspiracy theories?
I was shocked, absolutely shocked. I could not believe it, because I know intimately how the airport was designed. We broke ground. I watched the construction. We bought the land. We hired most of the engineering companies. I was involved in all that. And of course, nowhere was there any kind of conspiracy theory at all.
If you're from Denver, you know all the conspiracies surrounding the airport.
But I have no clue as to how they got started.
We're the quirky airport with the aliens underneath and the gargoyles who are talking to you. And it's kind of become a badge of honor. But we do know that there are those spaces within the internet who truly believe that there's something scary going on. But all we can do is continuously reassure folks that their safety is really important, but we like to have fun while they're walking through our airport.
The first thing when you're there, and if you don't really understand the conspiracy behind it, you just go, God, this is a big airport.
I mean, it really is its own city. And so I have a different, I think, appreciation for the magnitude of the airport and how many people it takes to make all of these pieces fit together.
The first impression is, this place is huge. Why is it so big? And then when you begin to understand some of these theories about why they did this and why they did that, then you start looking around a little bit more.
So I took a really long tour of the airport, and I was like, I was blown away. I didn't even believe. I actually had to do it twice, because I said, come on, man, that can't be there.
You begin to start noticing things about the airport you didn't see before. And I find that to be fascinating.
The tent building at D.I.A. is also a Faraday cage. I'll say it one more time. The tent building is a Faraday cage. It's a cage that can block out electromagnetic frequencies.
And what made you say that?
Look at it. Look at a Faraday cage and then go into the airport and look at it. It's a giant Faraday cage. So it can be used to block all frequencies that are being used as weapons. Talk to anybody that knows what a Faraday cage is and take them to the airport, and they're going to go, hey, you're right. Yeah. It is a Faraday cage. And it is. It's a Faraday cage.
I wasn't sure if this was true, so I asked the architect behind the design, Curtis Fentress.
We interviewed a guy named Jay Widener, who was on Coast to Coast AM a lot, which is a radio station. And he was making claims that the Teflon-coated fabric is somehow immune to an electromagnetic pulse. Do you know anything about that?
No.
So that just isn't true then?
Well, this material may be immune to radio waves, if that's what we're referring to, because it was originally developed to be to enshroud radar installations for radar that went all across North America, into Canada, Alaska during the Cold War. And you can see those out at Buckley Air Base. They look like, some people refer to them as big golf balls, big round installations that enshroud the radar, which is inside and moves around. The idea was that we would emulate the snow caps, the white snow caps of the Rockies. And so that's the basic idea. A lot of people say, looks more like teepees than white snow caps. But I think you can see in the photograph behind me a relationship between the building and the mountains and the plains that it sits on. So it's a very, it was an attempt to relate it to the mountains and have a sense of place that was about Colorado.
When the airport first opened and some of the conspiracy theories got really going, I think the airport hated all of the conspiracy theories. They hated it. They didn't like the so-called negative attention that the airport and the artwork were getting. And I think for a lot of years, they sort of tried to push back or just ignore it or whatever.
To the credit of my subsequent administrations, they took it in stride, and now they've sort of made it part of the folklore of D.I.A. and they have signs saying, be careful, you know, there's something else is here, and the gargoyles and all that. And so they've sort of played along with it, and I think it's added to the interest.
5, 6, 7 years ago, the airport really started embracing it, sort of like, if you can't beat them, join them, and really has changed the way we sort of message that. And we have a really fun senior vice president who she's just got a great sense of humor, and I think she's one of the ones that sort of said, you know what, let's just go with it. And we currently have some really fun marketing campaigns in the airport and on social media and things like that.
Now, as you may know, they're rebuilding the airport, renovating it.
Yeah.
And all over the airport are signs mocking my theory.
That was going to be my next question. That marketing scheme that kind of embraces the conspiracy theories, what do you make of that?
It's called limited hangout. There's a political term for it, a CIA term for it. In other words, they say just enough to say, I wonder if they're trying to tell me the truth here, but they make fun of it at the same time. So they get double whammy. You get to be sarcastic and make fun of it, but at the same time, they're kind of like hinting, wink, wink. Yeah, there might be something here.
Once again, I had to go to the source.
Was it you and your team that decided to embrace the conspiracy theories?
It was. When I started at the airport in late 2012, the airport always had this attitude of fight the conspiracy theories, ignore them, correct them. And when I came on, I met with our CEO and we had a discussion, and I said, why can we not embrace these and have some fun with them? This is part of the airport's brand. It's fascinating and spooky and all of those things. And so let's enjoy them and make it a part of our brand going forward. And she was completely on board with that and loved it. And so that's where we've started now acknowledging the conspiracy theories and making them a part of who we are.
Do you think that it exacerbated that sort of conspiratorial thinking, or do you think it kind of helped curb it?
You know, I think we got a little bit of both. You know, it definitely raised the attention of it and made people look more into the conspiracy theories. But I will say the thing that gave me a little bit of pause that really made people start to react strongly about the conspiracy theories was when we did the talking gargoyle.
He's still there. His name is Grigorodin, and he is an interactive gargoyle. So he sits on a pedestal and he will talk to you as you walk past. He will surprise passengers because he looks like a statue.
You know, we try to do something fun, interactive with our passengers every year, and we developed this gargoyle that is similar to the gargoyles that are public art that we have sitting in baggage claim. And those don't talk.
The whole purpose of the marketing campaign was to make people laugh. And it was based on our conspiracies as usual, but we had a comedian come in, and the comedian was in a different room, and people passed, like if you passed, you'd be like, hey guy in the maroon shirt, I want to talk to you. And they'd be like, oh my goodness, there was a camera set up. It's amazing. You can see it online.
What, you never seen a talking gargoyle before? Welcome to Illuminati headquarters. I mean, Denver International Airport.
But what it did was created people who sort of came out of the woodwork and then started accusing us of hiding in plain sight, right? So there was comments about us making fun so that people then would think they're there isn't something. So if we're really obvious about it, then we're covering it up further. That created a little bit of weirdness with, a handful of people that were pretty extreme in their views of the conspiracy theories.
There are a lot of comments on that video that you could go down a lot of rabbit holes within those comments. It just shows that some people take conspiracies very seriously. It may truly believe them.
And, it made me a little nervous, a few of the comments, because people were pretty aggressive. But by and large, the vast majority of people get that this is humor. It's, our brand. It's a sense of humor and us being playful about some really strange stories out there about the airport that simply aren't true. And when I say humor, I want people to know, we're making fun of this in the sense of we work there. There's not strange things going on in the tunnels. Mustang isn't possessed. He's not possessed by the devil. These strange things that people have bought into. We're not making fun of people for believing that. You can believe what you want to believe. I think we're just making fun of it in the sense of we love these things, and there's special things about the airport. And no other airport has an enormous 30-foot blue horse that is protecting them, that has a great message about the Mustang, right, in our history and in our current world. But we do want people to know, this is an airport that's very proud of its art, that's very proud of its history, and proud of how far it has come. And so we care about our passengers. We want them to have a comfortable, fun time. And travel can be so serious and stressful that I think we all need to take those few more moments and laugh more as we are going through our day-to-day world.
I was curious as to which of the conspiracy theories Stacey found most bizarre.
The world's leaders are coming to Den, and that we found a place for them to protect them when the end of the world comes. I mean, that to me is one of the most bizarre. We have millions of people coming through our airport every year and thousands that are working down in those tunnels. And for someone to really think that that is going on and there's no knowledge of that, it's just strange.
In the end, they finally had to admit that there are tunnels under the airport, and they've actually showed them on TV. It turned out that they weren't the tunnels I'm talking about, but they're baggage runs. There were originally going to be a train, I guess, and so they built this tunnel for this train to take baggage under the airport to different places, right? Terminals. And then they finally had to admit that, there was a bunch of stuff under the airport.
All I can say is someday when you are at D.I.A. and perhaps you can get special permission to do an inspection of the underground baggage facility and all that space, and you'll see that there is nothing there. That's probably the only way you could ever convince anybody that there is no underground bunker or facility that's going to hide people in the long term.
I took Peña's advice and managed to gain access to the tunnels.
Admittedly, it was underwhelming. They were far more industrial than they were conspiratorial.
I found workers, rather than aliens, and regular vehicles, rather than UFOs, not to mention no sign of any underground secret bunkers. However, I knew that conspiracy theories are of ample supply at this airport, so I decided to start looking into some new ones.
I got to tell you, the artwork there, which depicts soldiers with gas masks on and strange little kids, it's really weird.
Which art do you think drives the most controversy?
For sure, Jeanne Tanguma, Children of the World, Dream of Peace. That one by far, because of the imagery in it.
And so then what are you supposed to make of these paintings?
People are wondering, what's the message they're trying to convey? How did they get that here in the first place? I mean, who approved these things? I mean, would you in your right mind have a mural of soldiers in gas masks in an airport? It's weird.
He was told what to paint, which makes sense, right? I mean, corporations, I can just let you go freehand. But now he says that he chose everything. So he did change his story. I don't know what that means.
Lots of people, though, in that airport are just going around their business, just doing their thing. And they don't realize there's a mural right behind them that depicts some of the strangest artwork you'll ever see.
And still to this day, it's one of the most dramatic works of art I've ever seen.
I can understand it on many levels, but at the same time, it's absolutely heartbreaking because Leo Tanguma is the sweetest, most wonderful person, and he, you know what he's trying to message about that piece is pretty much the opposite of where the conspiracy theories have gone over the years.
One man even said that my murals were satanic, right? A preacher from New York. People began to interpret it, their own way, what they saw. They're ignorant, that they don't understand. They're not used to seeing murals, or they're not used to seeing murals with meaning. So it's been real hard to contradict them. At the airport, for example, I painted 2 large murals on the topic of the environment, another 2 large murals on the topic of war, on the elimination of war. So in those cases, I was following my ideals, right, of a better world that we could make if we only knew the truth of matters, right? It's easy to see that wars are wrong, especially when they are imperialistic wars. To me, that was wrong, okay? So also racism, injustices, police brutality, poverty, all those awful things, they were so wrong in my thinking that I had to do something. And the only thing I could do, the only weapon I had, was my mural painting. So that was my instrument, that I used it as best I could to bring attention to those issues. So my murals at the airport, for example, have been called painted sermons. And I really like that, actually, because if I had not been a mural painter, I probably would have been a minister of some kind. So those murals are in keeping with what my beliefs are.
A lot of the stuff at the Denver airport is radical Chicano artists who are like a vital part of Denver's culture, and it's full of weird symbolism. It's full of really florid imagery, and a lot of it's about genocide and extermination, because that's something that these people were thinking about. It's any Native American activist, any Chicano activist is going to tell you about revolutions and genocide, and they're going to identify with other genocides around the world, and you're going to have the effect of some pretty scary pictures in this much traveled airport.
Typically people read left to right. The way that this is situated on the wall is right to left, and it wasn't really intentional. It was just the way that it happened to lay. So what it looks like is it's going from happiness to chaos, when truly his intention was, it's showing if we don't take care of the animals, take care of our world and recycle and all that good stuff, it could lead to something bad. But if we do take care of our world, it's something beautiful. So when you're looking at that without any context, on your way to a flight, it's quick, people are in a hurry, they're rushing to get into the TSA line. So it's probably not as easy to understand, but this is the best part about this public art. It's meant to make people talk and to make people think and have their own opinions about it. Another fairly controversial piece of art is Mustang. And, you're arriving at the airport, you're departing the airport, but those big red eyes are sure greeting you. And he has coined the name Blucifer, which we do not like to call him that. He's my personal favorite.
There's a blue Mustang outside the airport that I go by every month. A piece of it fell off in the studio of the guy who made it and killed a guy.
That's just one of those stories that is like, wait a minute, the horse fell over on him and killed him? It's like, what? It's just like, first off, who chose the horse? Why does it have to have fiery red eyes? Again, you're driving your kids to the airport. It's like, Daddy, get me out of here. And, and it's blue. Why is it blue? Right? And it's like, there's got to be some underlying esoteric reason around it. I don't know why they'd put that there. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Again, though, what it's doing is it's guarding. That's a guarding stance that it's in. So I don't know if it's like, this is the guardian of the airport or whatever, but I'll bet you somewhere deep down in Freemasonic symbolism, there's something to do with the blue horse.
Yeah.
I don't know what though.
He's really the protector of the airport. He's greeting those who arrive and he's saying farewell to those who depart. And he's really a symbol of the Midwest. We have heard some people say that that's one of their favorite pieces. That's how they know they're home, is when they see Mustang out of the window of their flight. And it's something that it's interesting that they can talk to people about as they're traveling through the airport. Look at this mural. This is what I think it means. What do you think it means? That's the beauty of art. It gets people talking. It gets people to get their imaginations going. Hopefully, at the end of the day, it's positive and fun. But no way. They're here to stay. We love Mustang. We are so grateful for Luis Jimenez's work. We're so grateful for Leo Tanguma's work and all of the artists who put, countless hours into their creative outlet. We're very lucky to have them.
And then the funny thing to me is like the discovery that the Masons are involved in the airport.
Right.
Secretly, so secretly that they put the Masonic symbol on a plaque and said, here we are.
The Masons are a philanthropic organization here in Colorado and around the world. And they helped initially when we were creating the time capsule. One of their lodges helped us create that. So that was in recognition to their support.
We get a lot of calls thinking that maybe the Masonic Masons are hooked into this somehow, this whole theory.
It is funny because we have heard our customer service representatives say that people who belong to the Mason group, the Freemason group, will have a card and say, and sometimes they'll see him like put the card up to the time capsule or say, where's the place where can I get in? Here's my card. Can I get to my gate quicker? And it really isn't that. It's truly a time capsule.
The truth is that the Masonic people called us and asked us if we would contribute money for their marker, where they put a time capsule for the building. And we said, sure, we'll give you some money if you put our name on the sign. And they said, well, yes, we always put the architect's name on. And we thought, that's the only way we're ever going to get credit for designing this building, is if we pay for that monument. So we did. And as you can see, even though they've made some changes at the airport, they carefully moved that monument or worked around it. So it's still there.
And the New World Airport is in reference to the fact that this was the first time we had an international airport. Before we were Stapleton Airport. And I believe it was referenced to as Stapleton International, but now we're finally Denver International Airport. We were much larger on way more land. We had so many more runways. It was a new world for Denverites who wanted to explore. So that's where that is referenced, why that is referenced.
I guess the theory is that we're hiding all kinds of codes, or if you lift it up, that's a secret entrance to the tunnels, but really there's just fun things in there. Like, I think there's tickets to the first Rockies game. There's a Navajo prayer basket. There's just all kinds of fun Colorado pieces in there.
There are Masons. In some parts of the world, the Masons are very influential. All the police are Masons in England. All of in Hong Kong, a lot of the business community is tied up in the Masons. In the United States, the Masons are a kind of dying social order.
They have their own conspiracy theories, so you put them with us and you get a whole bunch of conspiracy theories.
Secret societies do exist. That's, to me, not a conspiracy theory. It's a reality.
Every single person that worked on the Manhattan Project, which created the nuclear bomb, was a Freemason. Every single person that worked on the Apollo landings on the moon were Freemasons. Everyone. There wasn't one that wasn't. Buzz Aldrin even says that when they got to the moon, he and Neil Armstrong did a Freemasonic ritual, if you believe they went to the moon. And so, you know, he's openly admitting it, you know.
These secret societies are out there. There are some people who have been in them for years, and their mission is to control the planet the way they think it should be controlled.
Basically, people like me who've gotten into Freemasonic libraries and read everything and learned everything, but didn't go through any Freemasonic rituals or anything. We're not members of them. We kind of all let the cat out of the bag, you know, and now they have to use new symbolism, but I'm not sure that's going to work either, because we're so onto them now. To us, looking at, you know, these symbols, it's just gobbledygook. What the hell, right? What's this all about, right? But if you know the symbols and you're walking through the airport, you know you're in some place really special.
I think it's much stronger than most people think. Because it seems to work in the shadows, not a lot of people notice it or are aware of it, but it's there. I think it controls many governments in many countries.
When you first started working at D.I.A., was there a part of you, even if it was subconscious, that maybe wondered, oh, is there something going on?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, you know, not that I thought it was to the extreme that you heard, but you thought there's a lot of weird stuff out there about this airport. Is something weird going on? And I quickly learned there's absolutely not.
A lot of this is pretty funny, that there would be a runway underneath the airport for UFOs, or that our tunnels underneath the airport reach all the way to NORAD.
I think the reason that people are drawn to this suddenly and talking about it, well, because it's fun, but also because we live in such anxious times. And having a mystery that you can explain gives you control over the unexplainable.
Not everything is a conspiracy. I've gone after some of my friends who are talk show hosts who have claimed that shootings at schools never happened, that there were no dead children. And, you know, that really bothers me, because you can't label everything a conspiracy. You can question things. What are the motives? Why did this happen? But in terms of real events that have happened, they either have or they haven't. But don't, you know, be so outlandish.
The conspiracies are a fun piece of the main goal of the airport, which is to sustain Colorado's economic growth. It's to get international travelers. It's to have Denverites explore the world. And it's to make people feel really safe.
And we've had people who say that the moon was towed into place. Come on, you know, things like that. So I have to weigh these. Everything is not a conspiracy. Everything's worth looking at, but you have to be able to use some sensibilities here and say, no, that's just not happening that way.
The end goal is to make sure it's something for people to talk about and to keep our reputation up as, you know, not only a place for travelers, but a place for people to relax, a place for people to have a really good bite to eat. And if conspiracy theorists take that too far, we'd like to remind them that at the end of the day, we're an airport. We're a fun airport, but we're an airport.
I think those who believe in conspiracies are less naive than people who don't believe in them. On the other hand, you have to be careful again that you don't go overboard, that everything's a conspiracy. You know, this interview between you and me, you arranged it through my producer. It was done, but there was no conspiracy here. There wasn't anything strange about it. People need to put things in perspective.
What fuels conspiracy thinking is status anxiety, the fear that you're being erased, that your place in the world is being erased, that your understanding of the world is being annulled. And then, you know, you got something like an airport that you can deconstruct and explicate.
If the airport had been built without any problems and there had been no delays and the baggage facility had worked smoothly, there probably wouldn't have been any conspiracy theories. But because it had this issue, it just focused people's attention on it, and they started to then sort of relay whatever anti-government or suspicious government feelings they had to this event. And had it not been this, it might have been something else.
Do you think that conspiratorial thinking is on the rise in the United States?
Oh, there's no question about it, primarily because people just don't trust government and they don't trust other people. And when you have that kind of mixture, it grows and it festers and it gets bigger and bigger.
Sometimes there is a basis to be a little suspicious of government when government keeps secrets.
It's somewhat unsettling. You know, I would hope that most people would be a little more reliable and understanding. But then when you see things that happen where, you know, the government sprayed our Navy ships back in the 50s with a biological to test them. They sprayed here in St. Louis, where I am right now, over the city to test it. And they never told anybody. The Gulf of Tonkin, which got us into the Vietnam War, never happened, but they said it did. The Iraq War that got us into that. Where are the weapons of mass destruction? Even President George Bush says, I don't think now there were any. So you got to be really careful about this stuff.
There are national security reasons for government to keep secrets, very legitimate reasons for government to keep secrets. And that, I think, fosters this feeling of distrust of the government.
I think there's a lot of chaos in the world. I don't think that you can explain things the way that conspiracy theorists can.
If they spent a little time learning about their city government or their state government, their federal government, they probably wouldn't have those kinds of paranoid feelings about entities. And I think it just comes from not having knowledge, not being familiar with something.
I try to tell people, you know, it's not that I don't believe in conspiracies. It's that I don't believe, I do believe that there are dark forces, but they're visible. You know, they don't speak in parables. They speak with money and military force.
Some people who are very suspicious of government, who probably aren't very involved in government, because if they were, they would understand the government doesn't operate that way. If they were, for example, active in their school board, if they were members of their city council, if they were involved in the state legislature or in government themselves, then they would realize, no, government is not this entity that is trying to hurt you or withhold information from you or to do diabolical things, but because people are so not involved and they're so withdrawn from government. Government is almost like a Martian entity.
What conspiracy theory almost always is theology. Religion, you tell stories, and conspiracy theory is religion. It's about narratives. And the narrative about God and Satan at war and fighting a proxy war among human beings is a really old narrative, and it just keeps coming back. And I think that's the source of so much of this stuff. I'm very, very skeptical. I'm very, very anti-conspiratorial in my thinking. At the same time, I'm pretty open to the idea of evil and rottenness and corruption and people carrying out real plots. We have a billionaire who was raping children, and he had lots of billionaire friends. And when the law came after them, they bought them off, and he stayed free for another 10 years. Then when the law came after him a second time, he died under very mysterious conditions in prison, almost as though people didn't want him telling his stories. And if that's not a shadowy, weird conspiracy, then I'll give you another one. There's this gigantic church whose headquarters are in Rome, in a independent country in the middle of Rome called the Vatican that has a wall around it. There's billions of dollars of beautiful art in there. There's this massive bureaucracy, and a lot of their efforts have been bent on hiding and paying millions of dollars to keep it hidden. that an awful lot of their priests were abusing their young parishioners. We're living in a world that has been shaped by dark forces, but again, they're not magical. The Koch brothers don't have a secret handshake when they meet their billionaire friends. People have always been anxious that the world is coming to an end, always, always, always. The reason to be anxious now is that it could end. Climate change could make the world uninhabitable. We could much more easily have a nuclear war now with a bunch of rogue players than we could have during the Cold War. There's these horrible populist would-be dictators cropping up all over the world, democracies falling apart, the major alliances that have kept the world stable are falling apart. We have a plague that is very likely going to kill millions of people before it dies. So yeah, we live in a world that is just ripe for conspiracy theory. Because otherwise you have to unravel a million problems and work to solve them. And I don't know if some of these problems are soluble, but it's a lot easier to just blame the Jews or blame the Muslims or blame the Illuminati than it is to actually like reduce your carbon footprint and rebuild your alliances and so on. So yeah, I think things are worse right now.
I still had one more question.
In your opinion, is there a military bunker underneath D.I.A. or anything like that?
Well, there could be. I don't know. I've never seen any plans for one. They've been pumping oil out of that ground for years, right?
Oh, out there in Denver?
Yeah. The whole area, Weld County, was oil wells. And if you notice in the edge of the airport, they're still pumping oil, which would create a lot of empty space down in the ground.
So are you somewhat of a believer then? Are you open to the idea that maybe there is something else, something that doesn't meet the eye?
It's always possible.